The Packers didn't make it to the NFC Championship game last season for the first time since 2018. Under Matt LaFleur, Green Bay has made the postseason every year, and Aaron Rodgers has won MVP twice. Despite that, the Packers haven't made a Super Bowl. Green Bay only got worse in the offseason too, trading away Davante Adams, something that's clearly caused a lot of problems for the Packers offense. Things haven't been pretty at times in Green Bay, and the Packers just lost their third straight game. Week 7 at Washington, the Commanders outscored the Packers 10-0 in the third quarter and held on late to drop Green Bay to 3-4. Rodgers is not the problem, and we'll get back to that, but he played well. About 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks. And in the 2 losses before that, Rodgers threw for over 200 yards in both and had 3 total touchdowns with no interceptions. Green Bay essentially got blown out by the Jets in Week 6, and before that, lost a close one late to the Giants in London. 3-game losing streak. But it's come right after a 3-game winning streak starting in Week 2. The Packers beat the Bears pretty good, and then barely beat the Buccaneers and defeated the Patriots in OT. It was a pretty good stretch to rebound after Green Bay got pounded by the Vikings in Week 1 and looked pretty suspect. But now Green Bay is back to square one with a losing record. It doesn't take an idiot to figure out the Packers' biggest problem: wide receiver. Green Bay's offense would look a hell of a lot better with a true number 1 wideout. Maybe a guy like Davante Adams.
Gary, now I know I was wrong. I messed up, and now you're gone. Gary, I'm sorry I neglected you. Oh, I never expected you to run.
Davante wanted out of Green Bay, and the Packers decided to accommodate his request, trading him to Las Vegas for a first and second round picks. The reality is, Davante wanted to go play with his old QB at Fresno State, Derek Carr. No surprise here, Davante Adams is still a stud. Through 6 weeks, he has over 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. Las Vegas isn't great, 2-4, but Green Bay hasn't been much better without Davante. The Packers did what they had to do, and it left a gigantic hole at wideout that Green Bay at least has tried to fill. The Packers really went after the position at the draft, taking 3 different wide receivers, but only one was taken day 2 of the draft, Christian Watson. Watson was a 2-time All-American at North Dakota State and had over 800 yards and 7 touchdowns as a senior. He was hopefully going to take a big role in the Green Bay offense, but he's only played in 4 games. Watson suffered a hamstring injury in Week 5 and hasn't played since. Even when he was on the field, though, Watson didn't do much. 7 receptions for 52 yards. The most productive receiver Green Bay took at the draft came in the 4th, Romeo Doubs, 4-year starter at Nevada. He had over 1,000 yards in each of his last 2 seasons. He somewhat broke out in Week 3 after catching all 8 of his targets for 73 yards and his first career touchdown. He's played in all 7 games with 234 yards and 2 touchdowns. Finally, the Packers also took Samori Toure. He was a 7th rounder out of Nebraska and has a single catch for 4 yards. In 2021, the Packers took a single wideout at the draft, Amari Rodgers, in the 3rd round. He only had 4 catches for 45 yards all of last season and only has 3 for 28 in 5 games played this year. The Packers did try to address the need in the offseason too, signing Sammy Watkins. He had a 1,000-plus yard season in 2015, and he's bounced around a bit. He got a 1-year, $4 million deal, and he has already missed some time due to a hamstring injury. Watson has only appeared in 3 games, but does have 150 yards on 8 catches. So after trading Davante Adams, the Packers did only have 2 returning wide receivers this season, Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb. Yes, he is still there, and is questionable now. Clearly, the Packers have some serious issues at wide receiver, and are reportedly calling around the league. There are a few names I wouldn't be surprised to see land in Green Bay: Chase Claypool from Pittsburgh, Jerry Jeudy from Denver, or Elijah Moore from the Jets, who even requested a trade. The Packers want a wideout on a rookie deal, so those guys could all make some sense. Now that we've looked at the wide receiver room, let's make this very clear. This is not Aaron Rodgers' fault at all. The Packers are in the midst of a 3-game losing streak. Surely, Rodgers is struggling, right? No. In those 3 losses, Rodgers has thrown for over 650 yards and 5 touchdowns without a single interception, and he's completed over 63% of his passes in every game, despite playing with a horrible receiving core. Rodgers has only thrown 3 picks, but then again, that is a big downfall for him, considering he only threw 4 in all of 2021. The Packers have essentially had to rely more on other positions, and that has worked to some degree. Luckily, Green Bay might have the best 1-2 punch in football with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Jones has over 400 yards rushing and over 150 receiving yards with 5 touchdowns. Plus, Dillon has over 300 yards rushing and a touchdown, but he doesn't really get used as much in the pass game. The only other true contributor on the Packers offense has been tight end Robert Tonyan. He has 250 yards and a single touchdown. See, it's not exactly a great offense, and the biggest is at wide receiver. Until the Packers fix their gaping hole at wideout, nothing is going to change. I don't think it's fair to blame Green Bay for trading Davante Adams. The Packers offered him a lot of money, and that wasn't the issue. Davante made it clear that he wanted to go play for the Raiders so he could be with Derek Carr, and the Packers were willing to make that request. Now, it's no secret that the Packers haven't ever selected a wide receiver in the first round, but Rodgers has usually had good weapons around him. That's just not the case this season. Despite that, Rodgers has still looked really good, and anyone telling you otherwise is just simply wrong. The idea that the Packers should move on to Jordan Love is a ridiculous statement, especially with Rodgers making $50 million a year. If Green Bay can get a true number 1 wideout, I think this offense will look much better. Besides, you also have to take into account that the Packers did lose their offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett. Now, Hackett hasn't exactly succeeded early in his tenure in Denver, but that doesn't change the fact that the Packers lost a key offensive staff member, and the guy that was right behind Hackett, Luke Getsy, moved on to become the Bears offensive coordinator. So there were a lot of moving pieces this offseason in Green Bay, and for the most part, they were all valuable people leaving town. The Packers are running out of time with Aaron Rodgers. He's a very private person, and he's not necessarily a guy that loves the attention, so I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if he just hung him up. There was the question of maybe him even retiring after last season, and now he is only under contract for this year. I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers will retire after this season, but I don't think it'd be an absolute shock, especially if the Packers aren't set up to win.